Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Don from the Defion Productions podcast. Good afternoon, as we are here at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, a little bit later than our normal 11 o'clock in the morning Thursday filming. Don, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. Troy, the hardest working nobody in crypto. We're here to talk about many things today. We're going to talk about XRP versus Bitcoin. We're going to talk about central banks' stance on Bitcoin, and a couple of central banks around the world, ours included, have actually mentioned Bitcoin and talked about it and have answered questions on it. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the RFK hearing, as I come from the healthcare field and I have some thoughts on it, and I want to talk about that after we go through some of the prices and Troy goes through the charts. So we'll do that real quick. Currently sitting at 105,797 for Bitcoin. We're up about 2.5% in the last 24 hours. ETH is 3,267.99, up about 5%. It's actually up double what Bitcoin is right now. XRP, $3.13. Solana, $240.28. The total crypto market cap at 3.6 trillion. Bitcoin dominance holding very steady at 58.27%. And the Fear and Greed Index at 54. Troy, you can jump into your TA if you'd like.
Yeah, we're looking at the Bitcoin chart and the daily candles, and it looks like we're towards the higher end of this range. As you know, right before November, between like February and September, we were in a pretty long range for quite some time. So this is normal. Like I said, we're at the higher end of this range. We have a high at around 109. So, I mean, I'm confident. What's really tough, especially for when we always begin this podcast, you're like the hardest working nobody in crypto. You're the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. And unfortunately, for the people that are not holding Bitcoin or Solana, it's really tough right now, right? Because you can see Bitcoin dominance is at 60%, and Ethereum, like who would have thought, like I would never have thought when we first started our podcast that I would feel the way I'm feeling with Bitcoin at six figures, right? ETH is at 3,200, the same price it was at, this same level as May of 2021. So, wow. You know, it's tough being an Ethereum holder. It's especially tough, you know, having a large percentage of your net worth in alternative coins. And I want to talk real briefly because I just made a tweet about this. Basically, there's at least 100 million new tokens this cycle, right? We didn't have that many token creations last cycle. And I truly believe that 99% are likely to die off, right? This is similar to the internet bubble, right?
Absolutely.
And even after the purge, even if 99% of these tokens die off, and I'm sorry to say, your shit coins are most likely not going to be around next cycle.
100%. Guaranteed.
Take what you can out of it now, rotate it into the optimal asset, Bitcoin. But even if we're still left with 1 million tokens, which is absurd compared to, we have about 58,000 publicly traded stocks worldwide, market structure has changed this cycle. So the key here, the moral of the story is be very selective with what you're holding, because not everything is going to go up, right? We're very overcrowded in this market, and a lot of these projects are unsustainable. So for people that are watching this that are holding, you know, Chill Guy or, you know, Fart Coin, realize that just take what you can out of it, increase your Bitcoin Satoshi stack, and just be smart, you know, because you don't want to be that dude that has 0%. If you don't even have at least 10% of your net worth in Bitcoin or like your portfolio, like it's really tough. So be smart about this because this cycle is different, you know, every cycle is different. So I just wanted to add that point out real quickly. So we have 105. We're pumping during this podcast. Ethereum 32.66. We're still in a downtrend right now. I want to look for a breakout over this critical level once we start, you know, reversing here and having a change of direction, like a reversal. Then, you know, that's good. But for now, the optimal asset to hold right now is Bitcoin. And I hate to say it, you know, because I don't own as much Bitcoin as I would like. I'm more into these, you know, speculative assets like Ethereum and all these altcoins. So just wanted to point that out.
It's too bad you haven't been podcasting for the last 2.5 years with a Bitcoin maxi who's been telling you from day one, stop holding the shit coins and just own Bitcoin.
That's what hurts the most. You know what I mean? Especially doing this podcast with you. What are we going on? 2 years now, right? We're
over. We're working on 2.5. Yeah, we're getting close to 2.5
years, and you're stressing, Bitcoin.
from day one.
What'd you say?
From day one.
From day one. But yeah. The goal after this bull run is to be a Bitcoin maxi. Like it's stressful, this market, and bull markets are very hard to navigate, much harder than the bear market, right? So just be smart,
I'm glad you brought that up and you said that. It's kind of important to kind of talk about that real quick. When you're a Bitcoin maxi, it is less stressful because you hold the apex asset. The asset's going to perform over what you would consider to be a long time frame, but if you wait 4 years, you're going to get appreciation. So 4 years is not that long of a time frame, especially when you're talking about TradFi, when TradFi tells you to wait 30, 40 years for your assets to appreciate. This asset, you only got to wait 4 years if you're going to buy it at any entry point, and you're going to be in profit in much more so. So I think, this is a good lesson. This has been a good lesson to anybody that's followed us on this journey. And I say it selfishly because I'm on the good side of this, being the Bitcoin maxi, to just get rid of your shit coins in your portfolio, own Bitcoin. Yes, you may not get the 100x or the 200x if you're the day one Trump coin guy or the day one Pepe or Fartcoin guy, which you're probably not going to be anyways. Just buy and hold Bitcoin, and you're going to do fine.
An important chart to look at too is the ETH Bitcoin ratio. Denominating Ethereum.
Looks
and Bitcoin.
awful.
This is getting slaughtered right now. As you can see, we've just been on a downtrend ever since September of 2022. So obviously the optimal asset is to hold Bitcoin, because you can see Ethereum's down just from September of 2022. It's down 62% against Bitcoin. So this is just a cool way to look at, what's the dominant asset to hold within a specific time period. And as you can see, we're getting slaughtered right now. I'm hoping, obviously hope is hopium, but I'm hoping for a reversal here soon, because I do believe there will be an altcoin season. But when I say altcoin season, I don't think everything's going to go up. Not like maybe, Terra Luna will be a meme again and it'll go like pop a little bit, but it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be long-term wealth building. So
there's too many coins now this cycle that weren't along in previous cycles. Like, to think every single thing in crypto is going to go up, it's just not going to be the case. There's not enough money to go around. So it's going to go to the solid projects. Obviously Bitcoin, obviously anything you see in the top 10, 20, maybe 30, 40 coins are going to have some pumps. But like, there's going to be coins that people own, mostly memes and stuff, that are going to do nothing. They may even die off while the market's rocketing off, because people are going to take the money from that bullshit that they own and put it in something real like Bitcoin and experience the gains.
Like look at Chill Guy. Like, do you remember that meme that was really popular for a while? And it like pumped?
I don't. But I mean, I'll take your word for Pepe. I remember in Shiba Inu, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, a lot of most meme coins are down, unless it's like Dogecoin, which I think is the blue chip of memes. Pretty much everything's down 70-80% as far as the meme coins. I think we're going to have a period with this next bull, like this next leg up, this next expansion period, where a lot of this meme coin liquidity is going to rotate and flow into utility coins. With that would be good for the space. That'd be healthier. But yeah, these meme coins are getting ridiculous. And ever since Trump released his meme coin, it's just been even worse. Like, it's actually sickening to watch. You know what I mean? So
I've been in crypto Bitcoin. I've been in Bitcoin for 11 years in the crypto ecosystem, 11 plus years, and I've never once owned a meme coin, and I'll never own a meme coin. And I think you can do just fine in this market, even coming in now, never owning one of those shit meme coins.
Yeah, something needs to change, man. And I think Solana's facilitating these crimes, because there's a lot of fraud that's happening on the Solana blockchain. Anyone could release a token contract and create their own token on Pump Fund, and it's causing a lot. So what's going to happen is the people that are really down this meme coin rabbit hole, they're going to walk away this bull run with nothing. And the worst thing you want to do is lose your crypto right before the fun starts. I truly think that we are on track. Hold on, let me share my screen again, and then we'll transition into the next topic of discussion. I think this is important. Just share my entire window. We are on track, and this cycle is more similar to the 2017 cycle. as you can see, like this is the price performance and cycle low. And it's, one thing I read a tweet that, and I truly believe this, I believe we're 80% done with this bull run, but we're 80% done, but 80% of the gains happen in the last 20%, right? So if you get sidelined or you get liquidated right before the fund starts, like don't fuck this up, right? This is where the fun starts. So just be smart moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let's transition real quick. I want to talk about something not Bitcoin related, only because of the experience that I have in the field. Prior to being into finance, I was in healthcare. So yesterday, the hearing with RFK occurred, which I was, I'm locked into that because healthcare is where I spent 13 years of my professional life working up until the whole pandemic nonsense, which transitioned me out of that career. I posted something on Facebook that I want to talk about really quick because I saw a lot of people posting a lot of misinformation, and I wanted to share with the viewers my personal experience. And I actually, about 45 minutes ago, I called somebody I used to work with to kind of verify what I experienced, just to get their perspective on it as well. And they co-signed what I'm going to share and gave me permission to talk about it. But I posted on Facebook, I don't care what you think about RFK. Women lie, men lie, numbers do not. Healthcare is paying these people well not to think for themselves, and people posting nonsense out of context. Clips are out of their minds. I spent 13 years inside of it, so I can speak on it. Healthcare is fucked, needs to be fixed. I'm not saying RFK is good or has all the answers or he can do anything about it. He definitely has some conspiracy-like takes. However, all the people pretending some of the stuff he brings up isn't legit are out of your effing minds. And then I posted a tweet that showed Bernie Sanders, Raphael Warnock, Elizabeth Warren, Ron Wyden, Michael Bennett, Catherine Masto, Maggie Hassan, Ben Ray Lugin, Sheldon Whitehouse, Maria Cantwell, Tina Smith, Peter Welch, all Democrats who were grilling the absolute shit out of RFK, the top 10 or top 11 or 12 or whatever case may be, acceptors of healthcare lobbying funds. So they are being paid well by the healthcare industry to have these shitty takes on healthcare and to make RFK look bad. So real quick, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. I want to say it so I can clip some things to post on my page later on, honestly, just to be fully transparent about why I feel the way that I do. A lot of people think I don't like healthcare because of the whole COVID experience and the fact that I worked in the industry and I had to make a decision if I was going to get the shot to keep my job, to keep supporting my family, and all the nonsense that we saw during COVID. People think that that's really why I don't trust healthcare. My distrust for healthcare started way before that. I worked in a outpatient facility from 2012 to 2017, doing the counseling that I was doing in healthcare in a facility that had primary care doctors. Okay. And again, I called a colleague prior to this podcast about an hour ago to talk about this, to see if their experience was kind of similar to what I had seen. Every single Tuesday for like 2 or 3 years, pharmaceutical reps would come to our facility, and they would come to our space that we would have for our breaks, where we had like our little cafeteria, and they would bring in food. They would bring in tickets to local games, like all these kind of like swag, like perks and stuff like that for us, mostly for the doctors and the nurses. But because we worked in the facility, we were able to come in and have some of the stuff because it was in a shared space. And then I would watch the doctors interact with these, representatives, these salesmen. And they would have brochures, and there'd be a new drug that would be out or some new like pharmaceutical product that they would say, hey, if, you help push this product, there's more of this stuff that we could have for you. And the facility that I worked in was bottom of the food chain type facility. Like it was a facility that was in a low income neighborhood. Wasn't a lot of like money in that area, but I saw a lot of money coming in to support what these pharmaceutical reps were doing to incentivize these doctors to give out these drugs that were definitely going to have some sort of kickback for these doctors to keep promoting, right? So I can only imagine what was happening in much more swankier neighborhoods in places like maybe a big city like New York, where maybe a pharmaceutical rep comes in with a suite for, the Giants game, or, in LA, maybe you can go to the Lakers game, get floor seats. Like who knows how high that stuff can go and how highly incentivized these doctors can be to push these products on people that may not necessarily be suitable for them, but the doctors are incentivized to push them. So when COVID came along, and I seen how there was just one way to think, that you weren't allowed to think another way, and all these doctors were stepping up and supporting it. My previous experience a couple of years before that, seeing what happened behind the scenes, had me in a place where I'm like, dude, I don't trust what they're telling me because I know what's going on behind the scenes and how everybody's highly incentivized. Fast forward to today, where we have somebody like RFK, who I have already said that maybe not 100% of what he says is factual, but he's asking questions that I think every single American should be asking, because it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, you're going to get sick, or somebody you love is going to get sick, and they're going to have to go to healthcare to get fixed or to get some assistance. We should be regularly fact checking and making sure that everything's above board with that industry. Doesn't matter if you support Trump, doesn't matter if you support Biden, doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, none of that should matter. And the fact that we had one side, and it just happens to be Democrats, just completely piling in on RFK for asking questions that all of us should be asking, kind of infuriates me. And that's why I posted what I posted. And I even said in the comments that it infuriates me even more that all Republicans are liking my stuff or even commenting on it, and I don't hear anything from Democrats, because if you're a Democrat, you're supposed to hate RFK and you're supposed to hate Trump, even though they're bringing up very good questions that we all should be asking about why certain things are happening and why we aren't doing things a different way to get better results. And like I said, I seen it with my own eyes. I'm not giving you conspiracy theories. I sat there and watched pharmaceutical representatives paying off and buying the doctors that worked in my facility to push certain products. I saw it with it's not a conspiracy. I watched it happen. That's all I'm going to say about that. This is a Bitcoin and crypto podcast. I'm not going to go into a full, back and forth on that. I just wanted to share that. I wanted to take a couple minutes. I don't even know if you have a take on that or not, if you want to talk for a minute or two about what you think, but okay.
And that's why it's important to follow the money, right? I have a clip right here of Elizabeth Warren that's worried that the vaccine industry will go bankrupt. I'm going to play, it's only a minute long, but she's received millions of dollars from pharmaceutical company or vaccine industries. So a lot of these politicians only care for personal gain. So I'm going to play this for 1 minute. Did you see this clip?
No, but ironically enough, she's the biggest anti-crypto person.
Continue to make money off his answers are he intends to continue to make money off his anti-vax position. Look, he says he won't go to work for drug companies because the American people have a right to know that the decisions made while he is Secretary of HHS are only for the good of the American people. And yet, he wants to keep a piece of the action on every one of these anti-vax lawsuits. And what that means potentially is, as Secretary of HHS, he can make those lawsuits a whole lot more profitable. In fact, he may have the opportunity to bankrupt the vaccine manufacturers, and then nobody gets vaccine.
Do you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
That's the problem. He has said he will protect his right to make money.
You can cut it off. Yeah. I mean, you can cut it off. I'm going to end on this real quick because I want this to get back on topic with Bitcoin and crypto. But like, he has said numerous times that he is not anti-vaccine. He has said he wants vaccines to be properly studied. And if they're deemed to be safe, go ahead. But if there's something that's not, that maybe we should further look into maybe doing it a better way. That's all he says. And people are like, no, you're against vaccines. Vaccines need to be, it's like, you know what? If you can't even have a logical conversation about something, then your input on it should be discredited. So somebody like Elizabeth Warren, the fact that she is a representative of the people is one of the reasons why I think taxation is theft, because she is not a representation of me. She's not a representation of people that I know. She's not even a representation of most liberals and Democrats that I know. She's a complete fraud. And I'm completely comfortable saying this on a live stream that anybody in the world can watch. She's a straight up piece of shit. And I would tell her if I ever met her to her face that Elizabeth Warren is a piece of shit. And every opportunity I get, I tweet at her or include her in something calling her such. She's a complete fraud, has no idea what she's talking about, and she has no credibility to talk about crypto. She has no credibility to talk about vaccinations, no credibility to talk about healthcare. She really has no credibility to talk about anything. Talk about nationalities she doesn't know what she is. If she's an Indian, if she's a white person, who knows? Just no credibility. let's move on. I don't want to get too fired up about that. We got 40 minutes left of the podcast. Let's jump into some Bitcoin and crypto stuff and calm ourselves down.
Let's because I know there's a lot of XRP Army maxis. I just shared my
Good
screen.
transition.
I want to transition into this because this is a really great point. And then I'll play the video. It's 54 minutes or 54 seconds long, and then we'll talk about that. So I'm going to play this.
Go ahead.
Private lobbying, acting as innovation, acting as a public good in service. But what is it? Ripple printed 100 billion XRP tokens, gave it to themselves, and the distribution to the people is by them selling it. You know, people say, well, Michael Saylor's lobbying for Bitcoin. Why can't Ripple lobby for Ripple? Well, Michael Saylor has bought $30 billion worth of Bitcoin. He thinks Bitcoin's a good idea for him, and he wants America to think the same. Ripple has never bought Ripple. They've only sold it. If XRP is so good, why don't you buy any? Why do you keep buying it? So this is a private corporation that's created money out of thin air, that biases themselves, that wants to burden the American public to promote their self-interest. It's the same as 1933. It's the same as 1971. It's the same as 2008, hidden as a public good.
Well, I don't know what that reminds me of. Kind of like the pharmaceutical companies filling their own pockets, right? Like, do you think they're really taking their own vaccines? That's just like an analogy of kind of like what's going on with Michael Saylor buying and only buying Bitcoin and being a big voice in this space. And then we have Ripple Labs that's only selling Ripple and not purchasing it. And I don't know too much about Ripple and XRP. I don't know if you want to give your thoughts.
Yeah, I do. I do want to talk about it because when people reach out to me through private messages and ask me, which happens often, obviously more often in bull runs than it does in bear markets, but you know, this cycle specifically, when people reach out to me and they ask me about, you know, Bitcoin or crypto, it's either they ask me what I think about Bitcoin, which if they watch the podcast, they kind of already know. If they're reaching out to me, they've seen enough of my content to know how I feel and that I'm a Bitcoin maxi. The second thing they always ask me about, what do I think about XRP, right? And, you know, I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about why people ask me that. And it's like, well, if you look at the price of the coin, it makes total sense. People look at Bitcoin, it's worth over 100,000. Somebody looks at XRP, it's a $3 coin. If they have $1,000 to invest, they can buy a whole bunch more of numerical XRP than they can just buying a portion of the Bitcoin network. So it makes sense why people think that. But I mean, this is the bottom line. And again, I've been getting into some Twitter threads and back and forths with, you know, the XRP army. They're like one of all the crypto cults, of the Cardano cults, of the Solana soldiers, of even Bitcoin maxis, like whatever you want to say. The XRP army is one of the most. They're like. Toxic Bitcoin maxis have their own way of like doing things, but like the toxicity of like the XRP army is just like next level. Like the way that they defend that token is just like it's almost kind of admirable that somebody can believe in that so much and not even realize what it is that they're believing in. Because the fact of the matter is, the only thing that they really truly and it's funny that I'm going to say this because somebody that loves XRP is going to look at what I'm going to say and say that that's me in Bitcoin or that's Bitcoin maxis the way that they feel. But I'm gonna break that down. The XRP army only cares about number go up. That's all they care about. Pumping their bags. They want XRP to go to $15, to go to $100, to go to whatever, so they can be fiat rich. That's the point of it. They'll tell you that Bitcoin's outdated. They'll tell you that it's outdated, that XRP's a better version of Bitcoin. It's decentralized. It does all this bullshit. That's what XRP will tell you. But all XRP cares about is the fact that they want banks to use it, which is completely the antithesis of what Bitcoin was created for, right? That's number one. And all they want to do is they want something to happen that's going to make XRP's price pump. That's it. That's the crux of it. Everything else they say is noise. XRP wants price to go up. Now, again, I say that while you'll watch Bitcoin maxis and even Bitcoin maxis like myself tweet when the Bitcoin price goes up. We get excited. It's cool. We do tweet about that. But the underlying factor of a true Bitcoin maxi, not every Bitcoin maxi is going to be true. We just watched, I don't know if we talked about it, but you saw Fred Krueger, who was a Bitcoin maxi imposter who was doing a lot of spaces. He just outed himself as a fiat maxi. He's not really a Bitcoin maxi. And there was a whole lot of stuff. I listened to a lot of spaces on him, and I won't get into all that, but there's a lot of fraudulent Bitcoin maxis. So you have to be careful who you follow. There's a lot of people who say that they're Bitcoin maxis, but they're still fiat maxis. They truly only care about the price of Bitcoin. And you've spent enough time with me to know that, yes, I get excited about the price of Bitcoin, but if I was a true fiat maxi and not a Bitcoin maxi, I would own no Bitcoin. I would have been selling all along the way into fiat and then doing things with the fiat. I've done none of that. I've been through so many gyrations of cycles, and my Bitcoin stack only goes up. My fiat stack has only gone down. I have the least amount of fiat that I've had in years. You know what I mean? I've had a tough year this last year changing jobs where I could have used an injection of fiat. And if I truly was here only for the money, I got a nice stack of Bitcoin that I could have drawn upon to make my life so much easier this past year, and I didn't do that. So true Bitcoin maxis, we are here because we recognize that the system is flawed. The traditional finance system is flawed, and Bitcoin represents an opportunity for us to have a chance outside of that system to survive it. XRP, and I don't know anybody that can debate this. I don't know any XRP. And again, I'm not an XRP.
Well, XRP's use case, and a lot of these XRP army people say, like, it helps banks move faster. But Bitcoin's use case is removing banks entirely from the equation. Does that make sense?
That's where I was going. I don't understand why anybody in XRP. And again, I've said this many times before. We all have to mine fiat, right? You get up and work your 9 to 5. You're mining fiat, right? You go work for somebody. You have your own business. You're mining fiat. Some people are going to use shitcoins to mine fiat. And if you're using shitcoins to mine fiat to put into Bitcoin, it is what it is. Know what you own, okay? That's the only thing I'm asking. Just know what you own. When you start making statements like, Ethereum's better than Bitcoin, Solana's better than Bitcoin, or XRP is going to replace Bitcoin, or even these Pi people that we've been talking about for a while saying it's going to, know what you own, first of all. And XRP, if you're going to own it, at least know what you're rooting for. You're rooting for the system that Bitcoin was literally birthed, white papered, and created to opt out of. XRP's use case of survival is to dive into that. So Bitcoin is on the outside, XRP is on the inside. So yes, we can both agree that they're different. Bitcoin is different because it gives us an opportunity to survive. XRP is different because it's leaning in to the system that Bitcoin knows is going to fail. Mm-hmm. So you're buying into, your use case is to mesh into the system that we know is decaying. The dollar is losing buying power. We know this. It's inflating the money away. We know this. And XRP wants to marry with that. I don't understand why anybody would say that that is better than what Bitcoin represents. That's the fundamental argument that I don't know. I don't claim to be the smartest person. I don't have an engineering degree. I don't have a 200 IQ, but Bitcoin is created to be the opt-out. XRP is diving into what we're opting out of. Right? Yeah. I mean, am I seeing it? Am I seeing something or not seeing something that I'm missing?
No, that's completely right. That's the difference between centralization and decentralization. That's the whole goal of Bitcoin. I do want to talk about gold because I know gold price just hit an all-time high of $28.40 an ounce, now up 40% in 12 months. Is gold telling us something? And I actually have a tweet here from Anthony Pompliano. And this is a great point. Gold just hit a new all-time high. So this is the perfect time for the United States to sell its gold and buy Bitcoin. Sell the old store of value for an improved digital version. You can't thrive in the future when you're still living in the past. And then Peter Schiff obviously puts his 2 cents in. So you want the government to sell a real store of value to buy a fake one. That guy, dude, he's outdated.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Peter before. It's a gimmick with him. I mean, at this
point,
I
think it's a marketing stunt.
It is because his whole business is gold, so he has to have that stance. I mean,
every time he's on a podcast, he's got the Schiff Gold banner in the background, right, defending his
highest views come when he's debating a Bitcoin maxi.
He's like an engagement farmer.
Yeah,
it's kind of like when
he does it well. He does it well.
It's kind of like when people post these charts, and I want to share my screen on this because this actually triggers me. And you see this all the time, dude. As you can see, let me see. Ethereum is about to pump. this hopium. Ethereum's about to pump to 8,000 any moment now. And then they have these fake candles that they drew and then comparing it to an old previous cycle. And I commented on this. I said, I wonder how many people lose money by blindly following random traders online. This isn't alpha trading. There's no quantitative analysis to support this claim. I hope he's right, but hope alone won't make you rich. And you can see, and then what the sad part about it is these people have 131, 200, 300,000 followers. And it's just kind of just misguiding the newbies that are onboarding into the space. And then maybe like they'll open a leverage long on ETH, or maybe they'll put all their eggs in one basket, not realizing that this is all clickbait and engagement farming. So you have to be able to differentiate between the two and just kind of not rent other people's conviction, build your own thesis, quantitative analysis, and come up with your own conviction in why you're holding the bags that you choose to hold. So I just wanted to add that point as well.
Yeah, I like that. There's a guy that's got over 500,000 followers. I think I talked about it last week. And literally on the hour, he's tweeting some sort of Bitcoin FUD, and it gets a ton of engagement. I mean, it's
or whatever his name is.
I don't like to. I don't want to say names because I don't want to bring any fucking shine to these assholes that are doing it. But yeah, that's who it was. I mean, you already said it, so it is what it is. But yeah, I mean,
well, I comment on his stuff all the time. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you, bro? You have like 500,000 followers, and you're just obviously you have no like analysis to back up your claim. It's garbage.
Not even that. You're tweeting stuff that's not true, that's FUD. You don't have any real life, because he's always tweeting breaking news. Somebody else is breaking news. It's like breaking news. Then he says something that some other, FUD account that doesn't like Bitcoin will share. He never has original ideas of his own. So he's got 500,000 followers. And he's not alone. There's a lot of these in crypto, for sure, in crypto and Bitcoin. They have 100,000, 200,000, or 1 million followers. They have no original ideas, and they're getting monetized for other people's ideas. And it's just wild. It's wild to me. It's some of the best accounts have like there's a dude that I follow. He even runs spaces. He's got like 12,000 followers now. I think when I first started following, he only had like 4,000 or 5,000. Justin Beckler is his name. He's a Bitcoin maxi, and he tweets awesome stuff. Like he's a great original thought. He just posted. I retweeted it. It was like a thread of like 50 pages of just like his thoughts on the Bitcoin strategic reserve. And I want to talk about that real quick because up until I read his thread, I was pro Bitcoin strategic reserve. And then I read his well thought out ideas on it. And I've actually changed my position. I'm thinking that the Bitcoin strategic reserve is one, probably not going to happen. And number two, probably shouldn't happen. Based on his tweet on breaking all down. And again, we don't have enough time. I'll if you'd like, I think I sent it to you. I think I tweeted it. I sent the tweet thread to you. His name's Justin Beckler.
Why do you think a strategic Bitcoin reserve wouldn't be good? I think that's a very important because this is a big topic of discussion as of late. So why do you think, and just like a TLDR or whatever, just break it down.
Sure. Anybody watching this, I'll try to remember later to I'll at him in this so people can see his Twitter handle and follow him. He's got way more followers than we have, but he's like I said, he's got 12,000 followers. He should have way more. Like he provides good quality. He's always running, co-hosting spaces with hundreds of people in there with good alpha on a nightly basis or weekly basis. Those are the people that should have 500,000 followers, not this idiot Jacob King. But anyways, so basically the TLDR, and again, I'm paraphrasing some of the thoughts, and he put it out way better than maybe I'll even be able to give it justice to. But basically, he said that the United States dollar would be put in jeopardy if the United States deemed Bitcoin a good enough asset to put in a strategic reserve, because Bitcoin is technically, even if we can debate it or not, but it's viewed as a currency. Even though we all view it as a store of value, the average normie still views it as a currency because it's a cryptocurrency. So the United States, by creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve with Bitcoin in it, would be signifying to the rest of the world that the dollar's weak. The dollar being weak would have an effect globally on everybody else using the dollar, which would affect global markets. So it would have this rippling effect by Bitcoin being the strategic reserve, Bitcoin being the apex asset, the United States of America, the biggest economy, admitting that, would have this ripple effect on the dollar, which would hyperinflate the dollar and cause all the things that we think are going to happen anyways happen a whole hell of a lot sooner than they need to happen. So it's probably not a good thing for the United States to do that, because we all live in the United States. We don't want the dollar to hyperinflate. We don't want goods and services prices to go up astronomically. So I don't think it's going to be where we're going to see, number one, Congress has to approve it, which will probably never happen. And he outlaid that brilliantly of why that would be. There's many different reasons, not enough time to get into all that. But at the end of the day, it would be a speculative attack on the dollar that we're not going to do. So the idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve is probably just an idea, and will probably never, at least in this 4 years of an administration, be something that's going to happen.
Do you think this would be maybe bad short term, but what do you think about the long term effects as we're going into a digital world? Do you think like we should just, just because we're kicking the can down the road, do you think we should just pull the plug now, or do you think it's just not a good idea, like overall in general?
It's a loaded question. We should never. The whole reason we're in the problem that we're in is because we continue to kick the can down the road. That's what our government does. That's why we have a debt ceiling. It's just basically borrowing money from the future generations to pay for now. Like that's our model. So yeah, obviously that's a bad model and that doesn't work. And we should have. And I've said this before, in 2008, we should have let the whole thing just come crumbling down and just hit the restart button. That's what we should have done. We would not be where we are now if the leaders in power back then would have just hit the reset button. But because of the way our model of government works, these people are highly incentivized to keep kicking the can down the road and make themselves look better. So we're just never going to do that until the whole thing finally implodes. So yeah, obviously the right answer would be let's push the reset button and have everything occur now instead of later. But did we lose him?
No, I'm here,
Okay.
but it's like, am I cutting out because I just got new Wi-Fi and this is still
No,
getting-
you were fine. You were fine.
Okay.
The long and the short of it is yes, we should hit the restart button, but we won't. So we're just not going to admit to the world that the dollar's weak. If Trump was smart, see, here's the problem with Trump. He comes from the debt-based world, right? When you're a real estate developer, this is a flaw in Trump, right? That I don't think it's talked about enough. Trump comes from the world of real estate. What does real estate rely heavily on? Troy, can you hear me? Did we lose him?
He muted his
there.
skin. He's back.
Can you hear me?
I'm putting this next to me because this is ridiculous. You're like cutting out on me. But we're good.
Did you hear what I asked? When you're in real estate, what do real estate developers rely heavily on?
Okay, we're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
What do real estate developers rely heavily on when they're engaging in that industry? What do you need to leverage?
What, debt?
Yes, it's debt, right? So Trump was a real estate developer. Trump comes from the world of relying heavily on debt. So you have somebody in power who comes from that background of relying on debt to create wealth, right? So we're expecting a guy who comes from a field that relies heavily on debt to walk into a completely inflated debt-based monetary economy to come in and reduce the debt and get us back to a place of fiscal austerity, which is just not, we don't have the right guy for the job. I don't know if the right guy for the job exists in our current political climate, but I'm just saying, like, to think that Trump is going to be the guy that's going to come in and do that. And the other thing too is Trump is always talking about a strong dollar. He wants the dollar to be strong. We actually need our dollar to weaken a little bit in order to have better trade with our trading partners. A strong dollar makes goods and services go up higher. So we actually need that strength to come down a little bit to make things a little bit better for us. But he keeps saying, want the dollar to be strong. The dollar needs to be strong. It's like, no, bro, like the stronger the dollar gets, the harder it is to make deals and trades with other countries. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I believe like this could be like a negotiation tactic as we have a stronger dollar, right? So, I mean, what
Strong
we're like
dollar's
as a
not
crypto
good.
risk, as a risk on asset investor, like myself, like I want the dollar to weaken personally, because that's good for risk on assets. But yeah, let's move on to some more topics of discussion. Do you want to talk about, because we just had the FOMC meeting and this was a big thing that happened. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
yesterday.
So let me share my screen real quick, and we'll
You
play
want
this out.
to play that
This was
power?
cool.
Yeah, play that
This
power
pumped the
clip.
markets a little bit. Okay, I gotta find it.
Marty Bent is the one that I sent you that had the clip in it.
Okay, cool. Right here. And I'll play this.
Yep, go ahead.
Understand and can manage the risks, and it's safe.
So let's repeat what he said.
Banks are perfectly able to serve crypto customers as long as they understand and can manage the risks, and it's safe and sound. As a good number of our banks, right, that we regulate and supervise, do that. The threshold has been a little higher for banks engaging in crypto activities, and that's because they're so new. And we don't want to make the mistake. If you're making a choice to conduct that activity inside a bank, which is inside the federal safety net with deposit insurance, then you want to be pretty sure that it's a safe and sound activity. So, we're not against innovation.
He says we're not against innovation, but a quick TLDR on the meeting. Rates are unchanged as expected. Financial conditions are meaningfully restrictive. Labor market is weakening and inflation is falling. And we are basically in the question of quantitative tightening. Powell said the most recent data do suggest that reserves are still abundant. We do plan to reduce our balance sheet. We are closely monitoring a range of indicators to assess conditions. So no change. Quantitative tightening continues. And what does this mean for assets? I think this isn't really specifically bullish or bearish. It's essentially kind of like as we were before, but we kind of got that out of the way. We did have a pretty crypto markets are up today and right after the meeting. There was a lot of volatility during the statements and the press conferences, but what are your thoughts on this? Because we don't need, and a lot of people, the biggest misconception is people think that we need quantitative easing for a bull market. And as I remember, we didn't have that in the 2017 cycle. Did we? I believe like Bitcoin is going to do what it needs to do regardless of quantitative.
No, we did it. We did have quantitative easing. We had quantitative easing for about 10 years. Yeah, it was like a 10-year stretch from 2009 to roughly like 2018. Roughly. Mm-hmm. But the long and the short of that clip is like, Jerome, where were you in 2022, bro? Like when Caitlin Long was trying to get a crypto bank off the ground, and you and the rest of the banks were stonewalling, or like, where were you? Like, all of a sudden now we have these like lax, regulations, and I mean, obviously we know we have a different administration and stuff like that, but like, it's only a week old. You know what I mean? Like, we're a week and a half into this administration, and you're speaking like this has been this way the whole time, when we both know that it hasn't. There was a long stretch of time that we had a very tough climate for anything crypto related or Bitcoin related to operate in the traditional finance system. So he's being disingenuous.
Yeah. What about that European Central Bank president that says she's confident that Bitcoin will never enter the reserves of any of the central banks of the General Council? I could play that clip if you'd like. I think that's because that was pretty recent.
Christine Lagarde, yeah, I can go ahead. That's got this Wolf of Wall Street's tweet. Yeah, go ahead, play it.
You referred to, and whether reserves of central bank should or could include Bitcoins. I think there is a view around the table of the Governing Council, and most likely the General Council as well, that reserves have to be liquid, that reserves have to be secure, and they have to be safe. They should not be plagued by the suspicion of money laundering or other criminal activities.
Like fiat.
And as I'm confident that reserves will not enter, will not enter the reserves of any of the central banks.
I want to I just started following Mark T. Quant, and he had a really great comment on this. I just want to read real quick. Shout out Mark T. Quant. We want liquid assets, right? Well, she obviously doesn't understand Bitcoin because Bitcoin can be bought and sold 24/7, 365. It's a $2 trillion market cap.
It's more liquid than stock.
We have no problem with liquidity, right? There's obviously liquidity, and reserves have to be secure, right? She also said Bitcoin can't be hacked. It's secure. No authority can freeze it, steal it, rug it, etc. Then she said they have to be safe. As previously mentioned, Bitcoin is safe, decentralization, cryptography, security, proof of work consensus mechanism, and then the money laundering part, concerns and criminal activities. Everything could be tracked on the blockchain. Every transaction is public in comparison to fiat money where you have dollars that can't be easily traced. Many illegal businesses still operate primarily with US dollar, euros, or other fiat currencies because it's harder to trace. So her argument doesn't stand. She obviously doesn't understand the blockchain, and that's, again, comes with the learning curve. But that was just a comment I wanted to read because I think that's important.
Yeah, it really was basically what I was going to say too. She's just another disingenuous central banker. She's actually, I would argue that Jerome Powell is probably more realistic than she is. I think she's just like, she's farther off on the spectrum of like, she says never. Powell doesn't say never. Powell just says not, like basically like insinuates like not at this moment. He doesn't just like say it's never going to, like she's just like, yeah, this is never going to happen. Like never is like a word you should almost, no pun intended, never use to basically talk about anything. Like you just don't know what the future is going to hold, right? You don't know what you don't know. So to say never, it's just complete. Like you're not going to be the central bank president forever. Like there's going to be a time where your time will come to step down and somebody else comes in. You don't know what their thesis on anything is going to be. And you don't know what their evolution will be to say that it'll never happen. It's ridiculous. She's another one of these talking heads that's a joke. I put her in the same bucket as Elizabeth Warren.
I want to hear your thoughts on this because this is very interesting. The Gemini CEO, Tyler Winklevoss, said that the exchange, Gemini, won't be hiring any graduates from MIT unless the university drops former SEC chair Gary Gensler from his teaching role. And I don't even, is he still teaching at MIT?
Oh, that's where he's at now. Yeah, that's where he's.
So until he's fired from that university, Gemini is not going to hire any interns or anyone from MIT. What do you think about that? Do you think that's like a good move, or do you think it's like
two ways to answer that? Number one, Gemini is owned by the Winklevoss twins. They are allowed to do whatever they want with their company. They can decide who to hire, who not to hire. Who am I to tell them what to do with their business? That's number one. Number two, on the outside looking in, I don't think this is a good look. I don't agree with it. Just because, and I don't like Gary Gensler, so I'm with them on that. But it doesn't just hurt. Like I don't know what point they're proving because MIT is a very prestigious university, right? So they're hurting themselves by doing this in essence, because they may not get the next great person for a role at their company that could come from MIT that has nothing to do with Gary Gensler just because of this spat that they have with Gensler, not liking Gensler because Gensler sent them a Wells notice or went after them or whatever the case may be. Like they're in effect like cutting off their nose to spite their face, right? Like MIT didn't do anything to them. Gary Gensler did something to them. I could see if MIT as a university had some sort of beef with Gemini or did something to the Winklevoss twins. It's like they're taking strays for no reason, number one. And MIT, no matter what you feel about colleges, universities, they have smart people graduating from there. So some smart person that may want to be ready and gung-ho to come into the Bitcoin and crypto industry ready to work gets penalized because Gary Gensler came and taught at that university. It's not fair to them. They had nothing to do with that. They may hate Gary Gensler themselves. You know what I mean? I don't agree with it. I think it's a bad look, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I was kind of surprised when I saw that. I was like, wow, that's kind of harsh, man.
It's super petty, bro. It's super petty. They're better than that. They're better than that.
Yeah. Well, what happens when MIT students don't use the Gemini exchange? I mean, I'm sure it does have no impact, but still yeah, it's petty. That's the perfect word to use for that.
Yeah, super petty.
Awesome. Do you want to, let's transition into the money supply, which is an all-time high. let's see if I can find this. Right here, global markets. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about macro. U.S. money supply is near its record. M2 money supply jumped to 21.5 trillion, the highest since August 2022. M2 has risen by 870 billion since October 2023. The money supply is sitting at 190 billion below an all-time high. No surprise that gold is rising. And as you can see, this is just a chart showing you that the money supply. So what do you think about that? You sent me this, right?
Yeah. I mean, money is just basically being perpetually printed. This just confirms that. And, you know, we're Bitcoin. Well, I'm a Bitcoin maxi, but we're both Bitcoin bulls, and we're very, very bullish Bitcoin long term because we both realize that we've passed the point of no return where they're not going to push the reset button. And if they don't push the reset button, they have to continue to kick the can down the road. If they continue to kick the can down the road, it means that in order to fulfill obligations, because they're running as of right now, $1.9 trillion deficit in regards to spending, which if you look at the chart, it's going like this. So right now it's 1.9 at the top of the chart. I think in like 2050 or 2045, they're going to be at like almost 6 trillion of a deficit. So in order to fill that deficit, they need to continue to keep printing money. So the M2 supply perpetually rises, and then that money flows to assets. So, you know, it's a bigger conversation when, you know, you have both sides of the aisle try to figure out why we have this wealth gap and how we approached solving the wealth gap. If you take a look at the amount of money, I wish I had the chart to send to you, but I don't, so I'm going to try to do it off the top of my head. If you look at, I think 1980 was the first part of the chart. The wealth gap between the top 1% and the bottom 99% was like 3 trillion, I think. Some don't quote me, but somewhere around there, 3 trillion, right? Today, the wealth gap between the 1% and the bottom 99% is something like, I'm sorry, it was the top 1% and the bottom 50%. That's what it was. Not the other night. It was the top 1%, the bottom 50%. The wealth gap in 1980 was about 3 trillion. The wealth gap between the top 1% and the bottom 50% today is over 40 trillion. And the reason why that exists is because when you print money and you inflate the money supply, the money flows to the top. So you can talk about taxing the rich. Taxing the rich doesn't do anything. It doesn't stop. You're not going to take that money and do, all that does is goes back to the government and they spend, and it doesn't go back to the bottom 50%. It doesn't. It just doesn't. When you inflate the money supply, the money flows to assets that the rich can afford, which increases the amount of wealth that they have. It goes to the stock market. It's now going to Bitcoin. It goes to gold. It goes to real estate. So all these asset prices rise, and the top 1% own all of those assets, so that wealth gap goes bigger. Taxing them has nothing to do with solving the inherent problem of the money supply. If you continue to inflate the money supply, the wealth gap continues to widen. That's the problem. But nobody is going to do anything to stop that. They had their great opportunity in 2008 to stop that. They didn't. They didn't push the reset button. They actually accelerated and made it worse. They printed more money. In 2020, there was another opportunity to potentially do it, but at that point, we already passed the point of no return, and they accelerated even further and printed even more money, which gave us more inflation, which made asset prices go up even higher. All-time highs in the stock market. I mean, it's Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump, in each one of those administrations, all of those, what did they all have in common? All-time highs in the stock market. Well, yeah, but all-time highs in the S&P, all-time highs in the NASDAQ, all-time highs in the Dow Jones. Like, it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter what side you vote in. Neither side has an answer. They're printing money. That's the model. So whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, rich will get richer. You can tax them as much as you want to tax them until you address the inherent problem, which we all know they're not going to address, the printing of the money. Asset prices will continue to rise. Bitcoin, Satoshi, figured out if you want to create the perfect asset It needs to be scarce. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be programmable. It needs to be immutable. And he created the perfect asset. Now we say the perfect currency, the perfect money, the perfect asset that will continue to rise perpetually while they perpetually print money. That's why we say Bitcoin goes up forever, because forever means they're going to print money forever. As long as they print, Bitcoin will go up. Bitcoin is the top of the food chain when it comes to assets. So assets, real estate, stock market, gold, silver, commodities, they'll rise as well, but Bitcoin will outpace each and every one of them because of all the attributes of that protocol that exist that cause it to rise higher than everything else that you own. That's why rich people, rich individuals, corporations, businesses, and countries are realizing, holy shit, this Bitcoin thing is for real. This is where the money's going to go, and they're all fighting to get a piece of the asset.
Now, you've been saying this for quite some time now. For the viewers, what do you mean by like the reset button? Back in 2008, they should have just pushed the reset button. Can you just give, for the last couple minutes we have here on this podcast, just a TLDR on what you mean by that? Because that could be confusing for some people.
The worst possible. The only thing that we can equate it to is a 1929 depression crash. That's a reset. In 1929, we had a reset, and you know what ended up happening? We passed laws in the 1930s to make sure that 1929 never happened again. We passed a lot of securities laws, the Securities Act of 1940. There was a bunch of rules, and the FDIC was created to protect banks. Like when a reset happens, you do things differently after to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And unfortunately, you know, we had the opportunity to do that. And again, nobody wants to see a global collapse. Nobody wants to see a depression. Anybody logical that looks at markets and understands markets would have looked at 2008 and saw that should have been a global depression. That's what it should have been. We should have, the way that things teetered off the edge, where we saw, you know, AIG go under, we saw, Bear Stearns go under, Lehman Brothers, all that stuff that happened, that cataclysmic, like, doomsday event. We should have had a depression after that. We should have. That's what we should have had. But we had people in power. We had a transition of power about to occur where Obama was at the end of his 8 years, and you had two parties that were fighting for power that didn't want that on their watch. I mean, who wants to come in as the new president to sit through the first 4 years of a depression? I mean, that's a legacy suicide. So they got together and said, how do we fix this? How do we make this not be a thing? And they all said, turn the money printers on. Flood the economy with money. People are going to come in and buy. They'll have more money. They'll be able to purchase things. Asset prices will go up. The stock market's going to go down for a bit, but they're going to come in and purchase. We're going to come in and buy these companies. And then you saw a 10-year bull run from 2009 to 2018 where you had all-time high after all-time high after all-time high. Then you had a 2020 pandemic where, again, you should have seen some sort of recession. We got a 3-month recession. We had a 3-month recession from March to May. And then you just see asset prices absolutely explode. And you saw stock market all-time highs. Yeah, stock market. I mean, you had people that were sitting at home not working, and people were buying things because the money was flowing into the economy. I mean, logically, if people aren't working and going to jobs, you would think that if they're not working, they're not buying, they're not purchasing, right? As goods and services prices will go down. You see with deflation, you would see an economy that would be deflating and depressing. You saw the opposite because they were printing money. People were sitting home getting free money and then buying things. And then the rich were getting richer as a result of that. And then you saw Bitcoin go from where it was into, this asset that we see today.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's the long and the
For
short.
those who are just tuning in, we have a YouTube, Defion Productions. Give us a follow, give us a like. Follow us on X, Rinaldi_Don, Defion_Labs, and then Crypto_Troy. We're going to keep, bringing you more content. We go live every week. So tune in, share this with a friend. We're trying to get out there and, if anyone wants to come in as a guest, Bitcoin doesn't have inflation. Technically it does.
No, it doesn't. Every 4 years it deflates, brother.
Well,
the supply gets less.
And that's why I'm the crypto Defion. Awesome. Don't trust verify, guys.
Don't trust verify. Thanks for watching. Please follow us on all socials. Repost. Tell your friends the only live stream that's live streamed from Western New York, Niagara Falls, right here. Don't trust verify. Peace.